Okay, this should be a lot better. Just drop a little bit. Okay. I think I've got it now. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, so the planning was to separate, because the live streaming that I'm doing with the D&D stuff, and once I get World Building Wednesdays up and running again, happens in the room which is currently situated behind the camera that is looking directly at me. So, and then this space where I'm currently at is mainly where I'm doing the miniature painting. So I'm trying to get two separate setups sorted, and I was hoping to use a different mic, but apparently that's not going to work. So I have no idea where it froze. I also saw that really somewhat worrisome, but that is a worry for a later day. So yes, but I am back. I hope, and I will figure out some things. So you will notice the camera is now facing directly me, as opposed to the way it was, where it came a bit from the side and would lean a bit to the side and do the chatting like that, and then manually turn the camera in order to get to the painting stuff. So that's not going to happen now. I now have a camera facing me, which also means that you'll actually be able to see me in the bottom corner, which will be around about here. And then I've got the second camera coming in from the side to actually show the miniature painting aspect, which I'm also hoping to change at some point, so that's a bit more detailed, or you can actually see the painting a bit better. So yeah, we'll see how tonight goes. I'm still figuring out a bunch of stuff for this, so yeah. Tonight I'm not actually going to be painting that much. I do have some things that needs to be painted. Well, I've got a lot of things that need to be painted. I did post a video of that on Instagram. When was it? Thursday, Friday, thereabouts. I think it was Friday. About my backlog, and it's insane. It's really insane. So I've got a lot of things that needs to get painted, but what I decided to do today specifically is to actually build a couple of models specifically for the Infinity game, which I quite enjoy, and the models are beautiful. They're really, the detail on them is an absolute joy to paint. Another reason I'm assembling these is to get them prepped so that I can actually do something else that I'm planning, which is, once this setup is rolling nicely, is to actually do a 12-hour miniature painting stream where I focus on my Infinity Army, which will happen. I'm not convinced of the date yet. I still need to confirm that, but probably in about 2 weeks' time. Literally start at like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, then push through to 9 or 10 o'clock at night, painting non-stop. People can fall in, fall out as they wish. It should be a lot of fun. And hopefully I get somewhere with that army, because yeah, I really need to paint a lot of stuff. So I've got a couple of miniatures here for that army specifically. I think let's hold on to the other cameras better. So I'm gonna go quiet for a moment because I need to add this mic to that scene as well, so just bear with me. Okay, so there we go. So if I can just get the reflection to go away. I've got this little guy that is still completely sealed, which I got at District 9000 last year. I do notice, okay, that is good. Chat is showing up, which is another thing that I was trying to accomplish, but I do see it needs a little bit of work. If my computer will actually play along, it'll make my life a ton easier. I'll sort that in a moment. And then I've also got some big boys, which I'm also very excited about. Those are primarily for me to play with. This one I got because Jix was running special, and this is a beautiful model. I'm not sure I will actually end up playing it, but damn, it's a beautiful model. So let me see if I can quickly get the chat overlay a tiny bit better. Almost there, I hope. See. Should be back momentarily. At least I hope so. Okay, that's a lot better. Yay! Okay, so now you can actually kind of sort of see what's going on in chat, which is exactly what I wanted. And the reason behind that is simple. If chat shows up on the stream, then if someone asks a question over on Twitch, then it also pops up on YouTube. So you actually have context as to what it is that I'm talking about. So if someone asks a question, then and I answer it, then there's actually context for what is being asked. So that's mainly why I wanted to do that. So yeah. I think that's a good addition, add-on. In the meantime, it's already 20 past 8 and I haven't actually touched the model. I've only touched boxes with models in them. So I'm going to start building models so I can actually prep for my very long stream, which is hopefully coming up soon. So yeah, the change is also the reason why there's no other music playing yet, because I haven't sorted that bit out yet. So I just quickly need to send someone there. Okay. Fantastic. I'm feeling a lot happier about this. So, yeah, sit, paint, enjoy, ask questions. I do not guarantee that I shall be able to answer the questions as time progresses, but, well, I'll try to do so to the best of my ability, if that helps. Now, I'm probably going to piss off a bunch of miniature painters because they claim that one is not supposed to be using the same clippers for both the absolutely beautiful, I'm just going to turn this ever so slightly, for the absolutely beautiful metal miniatures, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but, well, so you're not supposed to use the same clippers for both the metal miniatures and the plastic miniatures, and I don't disagree with that, but it's the only pair I've got, so it is what it is. And I'm doing a lot more plastic miniatures than metal miniatures. I'm just gonna shift things up slightly. That feels better. So if it goes well, then I'll be able to get to those ones. 2. If there's noises coming through, sorry, my neighbors across the street is having some form of a care tonight, and I heard them earlier and they were a little bit loud, so if some of those noises come through, sorry about that. I don't have control over the actions of other people. For those of you thinking of stepping into the realm of metal miniatures, the one thing I am going to warn you, the details or the cleaning up of them is a touch more intense than the cleaning up of plastic miniatures. Just want to double check something. Thank goodness. For a moment I thought they forgot the base. Oh, if you ever buy miniatures from Corvus Belly, I'm actually not sure if the Warcrow miniatures does that, but the Infinity miniatures has these sponges in them. And if you're thinking of using the sponge technique to like dab paint onto miniatures, these sponges are wonderful for that. So I've got a fairly large collection. There's some here. I've got a couple of large ones. I've got more hidden away in drawers because I use these sponges a lot when I'm doing the sponging technique. So don't throw away the sponge when you're buying Infinity models. If you bought them secondhand, yeah, sorry. I'll ask the guy if he can get the sponges. If you don't keep them, then, well, there's something wrong with them. That's what I'm looking for. So yeah, cleaning these up, not easy. Yes, I am tired. I am surprisingly tired. The shrouded boarding shotgun. It feels like it's the wrong arm. I mean, I could be mistaken. I hope I'm mistaken. Oh, that is so cool. So, if it's a bit difficult to see because of the light on the metal. I'll hopefully take a photo of this. Well, I'm planning on taking a photo of this and then I'll post it to Instagram. But from what I can tell, this guy is a mine layer and he's in the act of pulling one of his mines off of his backpack. That is such a cool detail that they've added to him. For a moment it looked like it's an arm from a different model that actually accidentally got mispackaged, which happens. But usually, well, at least from my experience, Corvus Belli is actually very, very good at sorting out mispacked items. So yeah, so the reason I'm tired is I got home at like 3 o'clock this morning after going to a metal gate last night for the first time in ages, literally. So I'm still didn't sleep enough, so I'm tired from that. Getting older isn't for sissies. Or I just need to get back into practice. I used to be good at this staying up kind of thing. So I'll see if I can at least record and then release the airbrushing process for these miniatures. The plan with the big live stream is to get all of the miniatures that is not completed or that I'm building now, and there's a couple that I've primed, to get them all to the point where I can basically just add paint to them using a regular brush. So yeah, do the, it's actually most prominent on the Carotid. So you can kind of see it there at the bottom. The purple with the green on top. So get that airbrushed in before the live stream, and then actually from there on just set and paint by hand. So okay, so that was unnecessary information, Erebus. I did not have to know that you clip your nails with your model clippers. That's come on, dude. Okay. Well, it's a bit weird. It's slightly personal. I feel like I know you better, but not that I wanted to. So, yeah. In terms of clippers, the absolute worst things you can cut with any, shearing type cutters. So, scissors, tin snips, clippers, that kind of stuff, is, believe it or not, paper and leather. So leather specifically, it actually functions as a very high grit sanding paper. So a lot of people, if you watch a lot of knife videos on YouTube, you'll often see people, they call it stropping, dragging the blade over a piece of leather to polish out the last imperfections in sharpening a blade. So leather is actually very, very abrasive. Which does make more sense than paper. And the paper, first time I heard about it, and I actually went to go look it up because it seemed a bit far-fetched at the moment. I heard the first time from Adam Savage that the specific polymer bonds within paper is such that it is actually surprisingly abrasive on metal. So when using that shearing force, it wears down the edge a lot faster than something like cloth would. So yeah, don't cut paper, especially not with a clipper, because you're actually compressing, not shearing. And don't cut leather, because those will really gunk up not gunk up, but dull your blades on your clippers. Well, cardboard is alternative, is a different difference to paper, but yeah, I use specifically disposable blades for that kind of stuff. Bought a pack of 100 a while back, and I have a knife that's dedicated to those blades for crap that I don't want to use my nice knives for. So, yeah, currently I am prepping some combined army for Infinity, which is my army of choice. I think as the stream progresses and I get to a lot of my other models, it will very quickly become clear that I have a natural affinity towards the darker, more sinister factions in the varying war games that I have played, that I'm planning to play, and obviously am currently playing. So I mean, I used to play a lot of 40k, and my army of choice was the Dark Eldar, which is in a sense probably the most sinister army in the 40k universe. I mean, they birthed the god through excess. Top that human Monkes. And then I have a Warhammer Fantasy army. So, and when I say fantasy, I mean actual Warhammer Fantasy before it became Age of Sigmar, and these days. I'm quite glad they brought it back with Old World, which means I can get some of the models that I'm missing. But I've got a quite big Tomb Kings army that I'm planning on building up and then utilizing for Kings of War. I have a Rumble Slam group. Not actually 100% sure what the proper term is, but I've got the Scourged, which is very much the more darker, sinister looking aliens. They actually look quite a bit like the Sentinels from the Matrix. I also have some Harlequins. I think that's currently the models that I play. And then I'm a Dungeon Master for D&D, so obviously I've got all the nice dark sinister models for the opponents that I have my party face. Fuck. I am trying to figure out how this piece attaches, and I can't seem to figure it out. This feels there. Do I have it now? I'll get back to that. So no, oftentimes I field unpainted miniatures because my aim is for the story to continue. I also use a lot of the 2.5D miniatures that I laser cut. So I actually have a lot of that I specifically utilize for my games. Okay, I'm fairly positive it's supposed to go in like this, but it's not going in. Okay, I shall return to you momentarily. Do something else. So no, sadly for a while I haven't really gotten around to a lot of miniature painting, which is very, very sad, and it means that my backlog has grown, but I haven't actually painted the miniatures. The one good thing that I can say about my backlog is I think in the about 12 years that I've been painting miniatures, that I've been in the tabletop gaming hobby, I have painted about as much miniatures as what my backlog currently is. So I haven't actually completed the count yet, but my guesstimate is there's somewhere between 300 and 400 miniatures in my backlog currently. And if I'm not mistaken, that I've painted a similar number of miniatures. So it's not like I haven't painted miniatures. I've just collected them faster than I've actually painted them up. Yeah, I would prefer it if my number was like 20 to 40% unpainted, but I have quite a bit of work to do before I can get there. Why does the light keep changing? So, yeah, I think my Dark Eldar is about 70 to 80% finished painting. My Infinity Army, I don't have a single miniature that is fully painted. Most of them are painted to a point where it's acceptable for tabletop use. So it's got 3 colors on it. But they don't look good yet. I also have the Mansions of Madness board game, which has got a lot of miniatures in it. And most of that is unpainted. The Tomb Kings I've barely touched. So there's a lot that is painted, and a lot that is not. And hopefully, in doing this on Sunday evenings, I can start changing that. But it's going to be slow going. Ironically, the part that really catches me of last night is more the fact that my upper back and neck currently hates me because, well, metal gigs, so obviously I was headbanging a lot. I feel for you, dude. Having a ton of miniatures and then having to play online. I tried doing the online playing during COVID for my D&D game, and we did it out of necessity, and the moment we could start getting back together, we did. And we haven't looked back since. And that's actually where the live stream started. There's us live streaming the D&D games, and then I started building these things out. I think sitting with improper posture is probably worse than going out headbanging, because I was active, I was physical. It's just muscles that I haven't exercised in a while, and if I get back into it, then that should be fine, I hope. Fingers crossed. Best advice, it really depends on a lot of different things. So, best would actually be to get a good brush. I know it's kind of cliche, but a good, this is a Kolinsky sable brush, which I bought specifically for the purposes of very fine detail painting. And it's got a very nice pronounced point. So getting a brush with a very, very good tip is key. And you specifically want to use a brush predominantly for the fact that it holds paint. I have done this before where I would use a toothpick before I spent the money on a good brush, but you need to dip it into the paint every single time. So it's dip into paint, touch the model, dip into paint, touch the model. So it's a very tedious process. You can do that, it does work. Just resharpen your toothpick somewhat regularly to get all the paint buildup off. So I have a dilemma now. Oh, no. This is the dilemma. Now that's a leg. That's an arm. It's a leg. Okay, so these are the parts for one body. Which means these are the parts for the other body. Now which body goes with which? This feels good. So does this. Now that you mention it, jigs, I know they used to have them, I don't know if they still do, but they've got paint markers, which has got a very nice brush tip and does that quite well. But and I have seen people using fine liners, but it's a different material, it's a different application, it's a different process. I'm not necessarily convinced it'll work, but I've been wrong before. So if it works for you, fantastic. Okay, so if all else fails, look at the box art, because Infinite miniatures come without assembly instructions. I think the problem with the tiny dots is right now, best case might actually be to go the toothpick route. It's the wrong time of the year. Contemplating taking my jacket off, but I know the moment I do, it'll be cold again. think when this is done, I'm gonna do a full stretch just to try and get the muscles to relax a little bit. Yes, that is very, very true. The website is in the process of being updated. Oops. So sorry for the jolt. That was intentional. It's not. It's open to the public thus far, but I haven't officially gotten around to properly launching it yet. And yes, so yeah, thanks. I've moved over to a different supplier specifically to allow me, to get to the point where I can actually properly organize products. A lot of stuff was very, it was very disorganized, partially because it was just a big dump of products and couldn't really sort them out unless I did a lot of work in it behind the scenes, which obviously I don't want to do because it's work and it sucks. There's a lot of other things I'd much rather do. So moved over to a different provider for hosting, and now I actually have it organized so you can find what you're looking for quickly. There's a lot of functionality that I still want to build in, such as building a search function, add product ratings, adding the wishlist option. I know people complain, it's like, oh no, but there's all these cool stuff and I can wishlist them. And very soon you'll be able to do that on my website as well. Intent, nudge, nudge. So yes, the website is available to the public, although I haven't officially launched it yet. That should happen during the week. I was actually hoping that would happen last weekend already, but I kind of underestimated how much work still needs to happen. And then along with that, the launch will coincide with a bit of a sale for the in-stock items, so keep a lookout for that. So this is definitely one portion that I do enjoy a hell of a lot more about plastic miniatures. Cleaning up metal miniatures suck. Okay. Now they are mixed baggies, so I need to find out what parts go with what of the Batroids. So it's a head and a chest plate, and a head and chest plate, and they look identical, so I'm assuming it doesn't make a difference. Those two, which you probably might not see because the light is not playing along. Then there are these two pieces which I have no clue what they're supposed to be, and it's only the one sprue and they look identical. It is not impossible that there are, I almost want to say they're knees. It could be backs. That would make a lot more sense. Okay, so they appear to be backs. And they are in fact not the same. So the one back fits significantly better on the one model than on the other one. Ah, that's gonna be fun. It fits good. Probably should do this up here. Chest looks like it'll fit. Then there's these pieces. The casting of the metal miniatures isn't my big problem with them. My big problem with them is very much the cleaning up afterwards. So Infinity, I've found their miniatures to be actually very well cast. Okay, this goes there. I've had one issue where I bought a box of Tegas and they sent me so the box contains 4 Tegas, puppies, and the box I got contained 3 puppies and 1 model from a completely different faction. Sent them in photos with all the reference codes, everything, and they said, okay, cool, not an issue, and they just sent me an additional Tega through Pandemonium, which is where I bought it from. Didn't ask for the other miniature bag, nothing. So, for the most part, I actually really enjoy Corvus Belli in terms of their service. The sculpt is actually quite good. The casting, at least in my experience, is very, very good. It's just, and being a product designer, I understand why they make the choices that they do. And it's so much work to get them cleaned up properly. And some more pieces that is hopefully all the same. So, shall I tell you the story of the Atmosphere, or should I build models? Because doing both of them is going to be an interesting challenge. I'm kidding. Yeah, so I think there's a bit more info regarding the Atmosphere specifically on YouTube, as is there's the entire history or a video of a large portion of history, and then all of the other previous streams is available on YouTube. So the very short version is the Atmosphere is my homebrew universe in which I play D&D. Yeah, that's the very short version. The longer version is there's about 15,000 years worth of history, most of which I've just glossed over, and it still needs to be written in a lot of detail. Sorry. So yeah, effectively, and along with that, because of how expansive the lore has become over the past couple of years, I can't actually even remember all the names because I didn't use them often enough. So there is also a World Anvil profile with a lot of the information, including some maps, a rough overview of timeline. So if you give me a second, I just quickly want to fit a part just to get a better idea of how it's going to sit. Okay, that's quite cool. Now, so what I shall do is quickly, that's not what I was wanting to do. That's the one I wanted. So I'll quickly share a link to the World Anvil. So that is what is currently available on the World Anvil. I'm sadly in a position where I need to pay for more space to add more, so a lot of it is, there's quite a lot of it still only headcanon, stuck in here. A lot of it is available in other formats, and there's also some of it that hasn't officially been released yet. So the Atmosphere starts out initially probably a good, let's say, 16 to 18,000 years ago. It's difficult to say as the time I'm talking about now in the Atlasphere's history is before time. So it's difficult to say precisely when, but at this point in the history of the Atlasphere, it was predominantly, well, not predominantly, it was just a group of formless entities, very Lovecraftian in nature, I mean, consisting mainly of tentacles and eyes that would float around aimlessly in the void. Sometimes they would cross paths and interesting things would happen. Either a fight would break out and the strongest would consume the weakest, or they would just pass by, nothing happens. Sometimes the one would just let the other one absorb it, and completely formless. And they would also randomly separate, and a being would get to a point and just separate into two beings, and those two beings would go their separate ways, until one fateful separation, where instead of creating another eldritch being, the first of the gods were separate, the first of the 12 primary gods, named Ares. So he had a bit of a mind, started thinking, planning, and as time progresses, a total of 11 more times, so 12 times total, separations occurred where there was a more substantial, more defined godlike entity that came out of the separation. And these 12 joined forces together and a large battle ensued in the void, where the elder gods, as they became known later on, were banished to the outer fringes of the void, leaving the 12 primary gods to their own devices. And they decided to forge the Atlasphere. So because it was being forged, it became the responsibility of the god of the forge, named Kotar, and he forged out all of the pieces of the Atlasphere mechanism. So the Atlasphere is a mechanism, it's a clockwork mechanism, kind of in the shape of a ship, as it's sailing through the void. And on this mechanism there are multiple planes of existence that Kotar forged in place, and each of the 12 primary gods took responsibility for these planes, with the exception of Kotar himself, as he's kind of more responsible for the entire mechanism itself, as well as the god Phaethon and goddess Fedea, the god of the sun and the goddess of the moon. But the other 9 each took responsibility for a single realm, so 9 realms of existence. And at which point the wife of Ares, whose name I don't recall, I know I changed it at some point because it was too similar to one of the other gods, as well as to a leader here in South Africa that isn't particularly well liked. No, not the president, a different one. So changed her name. She started sculpting the various creatures that now inhabit Iraba, which is effectively the material plane. So ironically, it's called the Acleosphere, and Iraba is the only plane of existence that is actually a sphere. All the other planes of existence is disks in various positions, which does make some of them a bit more interesting. So the first races that were sculpted on the Acleosphere was all the scale-skinned creatures. So your dragons, your dragonborn, lizard folk, dinosaurs, snakes, crocodiles, reptiles. So anything with a scale skin was sculpted in that period, and it was, for long, it was a period of great peace, until several of the dragons became excessively greedy in hoarding mainly a variety of gemstones and riches, and they delved quite deeply into the structure, into the surface of Iraba in order to hide their hoards. And as time progressed, there became a fairly wide division between the dragons that was excessively greedy and wanted more and more, and the dragons who understood their role, their purpose within this plane of existence, and well, did not become as greedy. And so a war erupted, and the war was so powerful in the use of the various magics and God-given gifts that it ended up tearing apart the home continent of the dragons, Nunata, which to this day is a collection of floating islands. And I mean, we're talking a good almost 10,000 years later, and it's still floating. Now, I mean, if you look in the modern times in the Acleosphere, very few people actually approach Nunata due to it still being the dragon continent, and outside peoples are not really welcomed. So, but then along with the this great war, the gods chose to intervene in an attempt to balance the scales, and they created the fair folk. So your elves, your fae, sculpt your fair folk. So your elves, your fae, all those kind of creatures who, well, did their duty in terms of rebalancing the war, the dragon war. There's 4 ages, and every age coincides with the primary species that was sculpted in that era. So the first age was the dragon age, then you had the elven age. So the elves, with their long lifespan, were a bit slower to actually become greedy. So I think, if I recall, they've got the longest age, but they too fell to greed, greed for darker powers, which birthed a variety of different creatures, predominantly orcs and undead. So the elves who craved these darker creatures would So the elves who craved these darker powers would then create their own armies from fallen enemies, i.e., raising the dead. So it's where the undead comes from, your skeletons, your zombies, ghouls, all that kind of stuff. Or to capture enemy combatants and change them into what eventually became known as orcs and goblins. Now, these combatants varied from were both elves as well as scaleskins, as they were mercenary forces coming from Nunata in order to aid in this battle, but sadly it wasn't enough. So, very big war, and at the end, gods once again decided to intervene, and they created the stunted folk and the giant folk. And stunted folk are your dwarves, your halflings, your gnomes. So the dwarves, obviously being the primary race, they were in the following age, as well as the giants, which did not actually really engage all that much with the Great Wars. They preferred to keep to themselves. So there are also some of these stunted folk that were captured and transformed into a variety of unholy creations. But at the end of the Elven Age, the Dark Elves were vanquished, so they were completely killed off. Now, I know a lot of people who play D&D will say, oh no, but what about the Drow? I do differentiate between the Dark Elves and the Deep Elves. So the Drow in my world would be the Deep Elves, not the Dark Elves. There is some more detail there. The Deep Elves and the Dark Elves look very similar, so the Deep Elves weren't actually contracted in to fight alongside the High Elves, the Wood Elves, and the Scaleskin mercenaries, as they weren't trusted due to the very similar looks, or looking very similar to the Dark Elves. So, concluding the Elven Age, we enter into the Dwarven Age. Dwarven Age went fairly well, with the exception that the dwarves started developing a greed for a power as well as a riches. So their greed was more for some power stones. Now, backtracking quite a bit, there is a race within the Acliosphere that was not officially sculpted by the wife of Arius, but was in fact forged by Kotar himself, with the primary purpose of being the protectors and maintainers of the mechanism, which in D&D terms is known as the Warforged. Now, a portion, there's a sub-dimension in which they live, known as the Glass City, and from there they move around the Acliosphere mechanism itself, maintaining it, oiling it, protecting it from external forces should the need arise. And in the center of the City of Glass, there is a ever-growing power crystal, and it's that powers the entire Acliosphere mechanism, as well as being an individual power supply to the Warforged. So oftentimes the Warforged would be dispatched to help resolve conflicts within the material plane, Iraba, and then leave once that has been resolved. So the dwarves, the dwarves started craving these power stones that they would get from fallen Warforged, as these were incredibly powerful for magical applications, and they would start building weapons from it, so machines of war being powered by these power stones, which ended up causing the Warforged to step away from entering into Iraba as they were being attacked, and leaving it open, leaving it void where this greed, and another great war ensued, in which the human species was sculpted, entering us into the age of humans. The humans with their shortened lifespans are very ambitious, which allowed them to really quickly travel across the entirety of Iraba to all the various places and generate all of your half-breeds, so your Asmar, your tieflings, your half-orcs, your half-elves, none of which existed before the sculpting of the humans. And now we're a few thousand years in, and that is where the primary campaign is happening in the timeline. And yes, during the history there are multiple occasions that, due to it being a mechanism and a lot of portions being offset for balancing purposes, some of the planes of existence would from time to time align and come closer to one another. So these occurrences, which were studied by the great minds, the great wizards, throughout the history of the Atmosphere, became known as the alignment of the planes. And these generated some very interesting interactions, as when the planes came fairly close to one another, there would be a thinning between them, allowing things and creatures to pass in between the planes, which generated large amounts of excitement and conflicts throughout history, as creatures were allowed to come through, and some people wanted to stop that, some people actually wanted that to happen in order to bring more creatures into Iraba, and others wanted these creatures in order to study them in the hopes of better understanding these different planes of existence. So, yes, that is the Atmosphere as it stands. There is a bit more history that has been written, and I am currently actively building out the universe further. So the World Building Wednesdays, which I do in between the D&D campaigns, is actually actively exploring the continued upgrades that I'm doing, well, not upgrades, but continued writing that I'm doing for the Atmosphere. So, does that answer your question? If not, yeah, I don't know what will. Sorry. Oh, and any one-shots that I do run, which I do from time to time, specifically to introduce people to D&D, I set all of them in my universe. So if you do happen to play in one of my one-shots, you will notice there are equivalents in my universe that you would find within I call it the Fey Run. I've heard a lot of people call it the Fey Rune, and I've no idea if that's actually accurate or not. I call it the Fey Run. So there are a lot of things within the Fey Run that you will find equivalents of in my universe, as that would actually allow me to use some of the pre-written D&D modules in my world. One of my favorites being the Candlekeep Mysteries, which is where I run a lot of my one-shots from, or that I use for the one-shots I run. So the Candlekeep Mysteries in my universe is known as Lucarna, or the Candlekeep in my universe is known as Lucarna Borgir. Lucarna Borgir is one of the more fleshed out concepts or aspects of the universe. So Lucarna Borgir used to be a dwarven fortress that was built at the later stages of the Great Elven Wars. And it stood, and it's still standing today. At one point it was demilitarized and turned into a library to store the vast knowledges of Iraba, and eventually became what the great library that it is known for today. So, yeah, if it asks more questions, please ask them. I'm open to questions such as that, as oftentimes people notice things that I don't, and it helps my thinking to actually answer these things. So by all means, ask away. I can't guarantee answers, and I might come up with stuff on the fly. And yes, there's a lot of inspiration from Tolkien to Terry Pratchett to just straight up Norse mythology, Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, obviously The Witcher. Alignment of the planes, conjunction of the spheres. How obviously you want to be also even Warhammer Fantasy. There are aspects of the one continent that I literally built out this entire continent, or I knew where it was and I had an idea of what it's supposed to be, but I built it out because at that point I started reading the Nagash trilogy, which really inspired me, and I started building more and more and more into this. The continent's name, in case you were wondering, is Sauk. There's also a lot of inspiration in Sauk that comes directly from our Middle East. And obviously Egypt and places like that. And it happens because due to my dad's work, I actually end up spending some time specifically in Syria, obviously before the Great Civil War. So there's a lot of aspects that I take from those experiences and then build it into my world. So you'll see there's places called Al Talmurra and Al Damasuk, as well as Al Amun, which is very much inspired directly from the Middle East, from using aspects of our Arabic language in order to influence and help grow out this world. So, I mean, Old Talmura is this beautiful Mediterranean city, while Al Damascus is very much Damascus inspired, but also a little bit of Cairo, sitting on the delta of the Iteru River. Al Amon is more of a secretive location. A lot of people aren't even aware that it exists. So, yeah. So, the sad part is kind of, it does run in my blood. I'm not a big fan of bringing this up, but I mean, I am the grandson of one of South Africa's most prolific authors, which passed away a while back. Well, a while back is also quite a while back. So, I mean, writing and being creative is very much, it's in my blood. It's who I am. And the other side of it is I was very much the weird kid at school. And being a tiny private school, when you're the weird kid, there isn't a group where you can go. You are the group. So, I mean, the weird kid group at my school was me and my other two personalities. Me, myself, and I. Jokes. I don't have multiple personality disorder. At least that I know of. So, I would also spend a lot of time as a kid reading books, imagining worlds, fantasies. So, and as an arts project for because I took fine arts as a matric subject, and as a project 1 year, because we had to fill a visual diary every single year, and as a project at that point I started building a world, and a lot of that I just kind of took over and plugged straight into what I'm doing now. So, for instance, the primary continent's name, the Lenank, comes directly from, I mean, my grade 10, so my 15, 16-year-old mind. Yeah. And the other side of it is I started playing D&D as a GM, Game Master, end of 2019. So, I mean, I've had a good more than 5 years to build this out. Now, way back when we started, the Atmosphere was literally no more than the group of islands known as Adamore, in which my primary campaign is running. And it expanded from there. I mean, currently, if you look at the map, Adamore is a dot on the world map. It's really, really a small aspect of the entire universe. And I mean, the map is one of 9 planes of existence. So, yes. There's a lot, and it's actively growing. Another thing that I'm very excited about, and he might hate me, but I'll handle him. One of my players is actually in the Isles of Adamore campaign is actually a creative writer, so he writes stories, and he is tasked, for lack of a better term, to write short stories, or try and write short stories set in the world in order to help flesh out the building of it. So there are other people also working on this, and I mean a lot of it. So for instance, the whole Warforged arc I brought in specifically because one of my players wanted to play Warforged, and at that time I didn't have a reason for why the Warforged would exist, so I retrospectively added that to make it a part of the greater story of the Atmosphere. So oftentimes I would create things because the people playing my D&D campaigns asked for it. It's like, but I want a reason for this to exist. And I mean, the guy playing the Warforged, Rhiannon, absolutely loves his backstory currently, because effectively what I told him is like, well, you're like 16,000 years old. Because the backstory that you wrote for your character is that you were the second Warforged ever built, which means you were forged like 16,000 years ago. You've actually looked straight upon the face of Kotar. You don't necessarily now have a direct personal relationship with him, but you've seen the face of Kotar. And yet you've spent time, and I mean a big part of his backstory is the last, I think about 17,000 years, he stayed behind on Iraba in order to actually observe the dwarves, and he ended up spending some time with them and learning their languages and learning their crafts. But he stayed behind as a last bastion in order to ensure that when this greedy generation of dwarves eventually die out and they can remove this greed, that he would then be able to contact the rest of the Warforged and tell them, like, well, hey, listen, this shit that sent us away stopped. And we actually wrote that into the Isles of Adamor campaign, where he actually found the pieces and found things and actually remembered aspects of himself that he had forgotten. And a portion of that his history actually became a fundamental turning point within the campaign. And I mean, you can see that happen, literally fold out in the YouTube videos, because we did that after we started live streaming. So I mean, obviously he knows that, but people watching the live stream could literally watch that part of his history, part of his story unfold as he himself saw it unfold. So I mean, there was a massive it was actually a very big story arc that we went through, specifically for this character and how it relates back to the actual campaign and what is happening there. So I mean, I myself am a little bit surprised at how massive this has gotten in terms of storytelling, and oftentimes I do impress myself a little bit with this, and it's a little bit sad, actually, that I've gone through a lot of this stuff, and it is available there for people to consume it, and it's so difficult for me to see how few views it actually gets. I think that is probably one of the hardest parts of being an artist. It's like pouring your soul, literally blood, sweat, and tears into something, and it's like people just don't give a shit. Fuck. Sorry, little bit vulnerable there, but yeah, go watch the past live streams. It's a lot of stuff is a fuck ton of fun. I mean, a lot of dick jokes, but also a lot more deeper moments, like him discovering these aspects of his history. So yeah, if you've got the time, if you're bored, it's all available on YouTube. There's a couple of 100 hours of footage available. I am a little. There is something to celebrate though. We recently got to just over 1,000 hours of views on YouTube, which is fucking awesome. So yeah. Yeah, I've heard of DMs selling like, oh no, it doesn't work with the setting, pick something else, and it sucks. It's like, come on. It's like, we're in this together. We need to have our fun. Oftentimes, every single time I introduce a new character, we have a fairly long discussion of literally, come to me with your ideas. It's like, come with a couple of ideas, tell me what they are, and then we see how we can fit them into the world. It's like, I'll listen to yours, it's like, oh, that's cool, I really like that, I love that idea. So here's what I'm thinking. Take this, and here is a bit more information about the world that I haven't actually shared yet, because it wasn't necessary, or it hasn't come up yet, or whatever else. But here's some more information about the world that I think relates to this idea you've got for a character. Maybe try that out, see how it works. And then we go back and forth a little bit and really develop a character that actually makes sense within the world, but that the player wants to play. I started a campaign a while back. Sadly, it ran dry because the plan was to run that as the games I GM'd over at Jigs Hobbies, and then Jigs Hobbies decided to stop hosting D&D games because it wasn't lucrative for them, which makes sense. I don't blame them. Oftentimes in business you have to make the sensible business decision. But the thinking was, the campaign was called Lucarna Borgir, and the thinking was to actually run a campaign at the end of the Great Elven Wars, surrounding the construction of Lucarna Borgir, the Great Dwarven Fortress, and I mean, one of the big challenges was, I literally sort of told people, it's like, well, understand, there are certain races that you cannot play. Why? Because they wouldn't exist for the next 3,500 years. So, anything with human parentage simply doesn't exist yet. So, no humans, no tieflings, no Aasimar, no half elves, half orcs, none of that. Not because I'm trying to be mean, just because they don't exist, and I'm trying something. So, yeah, obviously if a player has a great idea, then sure, but that's why I have those discussions. It's like, now you want to play Tabaxi because Kitty, okay, sure. Let's see how we can make this work. And along with that, part of the social contract that, and I actually wrote one out because we're live streaming, so there are other factors at play, not just, oh no, we're a group of friends sitting around a table playing D&D. There are other factors that needs to be considered. So I actually did type one out. I told them, like, I'm not going to be such that's like, oh no, you have to sign, and we're going to be so very strict, and there's like, no, there's like a business contract. No, it's like, let's just type something out that we have something to reference. So, I mean, in a case with Tabaxi Kitty, it's like, okay, that's fine. I don't mind you wanting to do that, but understand this is a serious campaign. This is a narratively driven campaign. So if you want to play Kitty, sure. Let's see how we can find a way to make this work. And if we don't, what are your options B and C? Maybe even D. Let's see how I can... I mean, another option, if you want to play a Kitty, is, okay, play a Druid. And then wild shape into a cat and use the cat to sneak into places. There are ways you can make things like that work. You just have to have the conversation. I think, sadly, with a lot of D&D games, that isn't happening. But that's my opinion. So take that with a handful of salt. But yes, like having... I recently watched a comedy show, and the guy was talking about all these D&D stuff, and then you've got this gnome barbarians, like cupcakes, and my name's Cupcake Sparkles. And just this grimdark setting. It's like, no, this doesn't fucking work. I actually had a player like that. It's like, oh no, I'm playing a 7-year-old half-orc fighter, and my name is Sparkle. She was a fucking menace. I learned that one the hard way. Yeah, she's not playing with us anymore, but that's because of other reasons that I shall not delve into on the stream. Oh, yes. So, I finished putting one together, which is kind of why I'm here tonight. I think this is a fucking beautiful model. I still need to put him on his base, and then it's prime time, and well, it will be prime time once I've done the other 4 models. One of them is still in the box. So I actually have a can here. It's a conversation came up a bit. Wait 2 seconds, I'll quickly grab it. Okay, that might have been like 3 or 4 seconds, but you know. So this is what I use. Rust-Oleum's flat primer. I've had very, very little issues with it. I've had a couple of dud cans, but I also buy a lot more because also when I paint the MDF things that I cut, I prime it with the same stuff. and when I say I prime with the same stuff, I don't seal it first. This stuff goes directly onto the MDF and it works well. So that's part of the reason why I like it. From that point forwards, I would then go into a zenithal highlight for a lot of miniatures, which I do with the airbrush, and then I use the one-shot primer from Meg Ammo. I will not put this directly on a model. I've found that 2 days after I put this directly onto model, metal or plastic, it just wipes off. So as a primer, I would not recommend this. It might be that I just got a dud bottle or two, but I will never use this directly on a bare model. Still good paint for running through the airbrush to create a base layer, specifically such as the zenithal prime. So I would use that through an airbrush for zenithal, mainly because even Russell Liam's white primer sucks. I've heard people suggesting warming it up and then trying again. I haven't tried that. If it works, fantastic, but if I need a lighter prime, I'll go to grey and then just airbrush white over it, rather than trying to struggle to get the primer to actually warm up, and it just feels like a hassle it feels to me like more of a hassle than doing it with an airbrush over a prime. And then specifically for the combined army that I'm doing now, I would take this at a lot further. So I would do the zenithal prime, then I would airbrush from the bottom up. So using this one as an example, so black all around, zenithal white from the top down. Just get that in both shots. And then I would go from the bottom up with a dark purple. If I recall, just trying to remember which one I used. I think it was it this one? No, this is black. I don't think I actually have no, it's this one. Color did separate a little bit, but shake it up. I really need to get one of those vortex mixers. This doesn't look like the right color. But anyways, prime base coat from the bottom up a purple to get those nice dark purple shadows in. Then I would go back with a white, but more top down, don't go so far. And then I would go with the green. Now I have actually touched these once with the brush, but then you get very much this kind of effect. So you've got the purple down the bottom. It's not actually the best miniature for that specifically. And you've got the green from the top. Now I have pushed the highlights on this one a lot further, and I'm going to push them to yellow. I also, for some of the bigger models such as this one, I would use a masking fluid and then keep purple on all of the fleshy parts. So I actually only make the armor green, but have the flesh still purple. So then I would do a lot more purple. Only then I'm done, and then I would sit and actually paint with a brush. So because I got the airbrush, a lot of my paints I've moved over to airbrush ready paints, so they're a lot thinner. So they should actually work fine with the vortex mixer, but it costs money that I don't necessarily have. which sucks. The other thing is also some of my paints need to be revived, so I need to actually add a little bit of airbrush thinner into them. Not water. Water does funny things with miniature paints. And add a tiny metal ball as an agitator, and then really shake them up. I'm wondering now, I should be able to build something that I can attach to the front of a drill that has the paint bottle at an offset. Pop that in and then just pull the trigger instead of sitting there shaking the paint pot. I can just pull the trigger. I should try that. Specifically for old paints. So I want to revive the paints because a single pot of acrylic medium or airbrush thinner is going to be a lot cheaper than rebuying those paints. And I've often argued that experienced painters tends to have a lot of paints, even though a lot of people say, oh no, but you need to mix. Yes, I do mix. But when I'm painting an army now and then again in a month, it's easier to buy a specific shade of a color than it is to mix it every single time. And I do believe that if we're talking about experienced painters, many of them agree with that sentiment and as a result end up with a large collection of paints. Nothing wrong with mixing. And on the contrary, I think it's a very, very good skill to develop as a painter. I mean, if you're doing fine arts, then it's a necessary skill. Still want to figure out how this one goes together. So the one thing I've found when it comes to mixing is stick with a brand. I will mix Citadel with Citadel, I'll mix Make Ammo with Make Ammo, I'll mix Army Painter with Army Painter, but I will not mix, for argument's sake, Army Painter with Citadel, or Army Painter with Make Ammo, because the specific way that they make those colors, often the way they make their paints often differs from brand to brand, making it sometimes a bit difficult for the colors to actually mix properly. So I have figured it out. I need to kind of loosen it to get glue in there. Which is apparently a hell of a lot easier than said and done. Are you happy with your lilies? Did they at least come out looking the way you wanted them to look? So, I'm aware of Scale 75, but I haven't actually used any of their paints before, so I have no idea how it is. Do us a favor, send us well, if you are willing to do so, send us a photo on the mini painting community group. So we can be happy with you. I actually prefer matte paints over glossy paints, so I might just give them a try at some point in the future. So whatever works for you. But yeah, I think it'll be fantastic to see your lilies. Obviously, if you're happy with them. I do enjoy getting or sending photos to people, getting a lot of opinions, even from people who do. I actually oftentimes appreciate opinions from people who don't know what they're doing more than people who do know what they're doing, because they look at things in a very, very different manner, and can then point out things that other people would miss. That'll be cool. I'll definitely love to try them out, and obviously then give my opinion. Yeah, that'll be fantastic. Thanks, man. the one thing I can say that's definitely a benefit of actually live streaming, being forced to work up here actually does wonders for my postures, because I used to paint like this, and I think a lot of us do, and I can feel it now with my neck being so fucking sore from last night. Working like this makes a big difference. So what you can do is, obviously you don't have to, but I do slightly bigger prizes for the Comic-Con miniature painting stuff. So last year, several of the paint trays and a full small portable paint rack for the overall winner. So if you're interested in that, you can't really afford it, try going through Comic-Con or at Comic-Con. Sorry, too many computers, too little space. So those flowers look insane. I would have done that with a brush. I don't know how you did that, if you tried the painting trick, the toothpick trick, but yeah, those flowers really look amazing. So the good news about the white dress is it is not too late to change your mind. White is notoriously difficult to paint. Even some of the professional painters try their best to stay away from white. Yellow as well. Apparently yellow is also very difficult. I haven't really tried either. Usually when I do white, it's on bones and then they have to be dirty, so if they come out a little bit wonky, then meh. So if you go with the whites, best of luck. You are a much braver person than I am. If you decide to go with another color, I would not blame you. There's one guy, I'm trying to recall his Instagram now. The guy's name is Adobe. He's part of the Warhammer club, or Wargaming club, that I also play at. The Art Dragon. Go have a look at him on Instagram. He is pretty much the only person that I know that can actually paint white very, very well. So go have a look at the stuff he does. He is on Instagram, the Art Dragon. I'm sure if you reach out to him on Instagram, he would happily give you some pointers as to what is the best approach for what you want to do. But yeah, you're significantly braver than I am. But that also gives context for the white question that you asked earlier in the community group. Yeah, those dwarves look really, really cool. I love the stand that you built for them. Sadly, the rest of you don't have context, but I do, so sorry. I really like the stand, the way you display them. It's really, really good. So I'm very much of the opinion that the best way to grow the hobby is actually to share our experiences. Now, I have been painting for a while. I actually started in fine arts. But I will not consider myself a professional miniature painter, as I don't think I've really achieved that status yet. Well, we'll see what someone like Richard says if I finish my entry for Comic-Con this year. If not, we'll find out what he says next year. I think you're a very good example of it's never too late to start. I mean, painting for basically a year and a half and doing the things you are is phenomenal. So, really well done. And, I mean, along with that, you can never know everything. So it's obviously always a good idea to actually keep an open mind and look at what other people are doing and ask them, like, but how did you accomplish this? Because that is the best way to grow your experience. Okay, I'm going to do this tiny bit by tiny bit. that's what I'm busy with. Yeah, having someone who supports you in the things you enjoy is a very, very important thing, which is why I want to get a dog. There's this wonderful meme of, it says like one day you will meet someone who's completely and totally obsessed with you, and then the camera turns around to this dog. I love animals. I'm probably the kind of person where if I have to choose between saving a human and saving a dog, then I'll probably save the dog. Problem with a dog that size is I'd probably step on him and not realize it, because it's not like I'm this tiny person. So I want something a little bit bigger. So probably, my preference would be a German Shepherd. I mean, beautiful dog, quite intelligent, if you train him properly. But I don't actually have any pets. With the busy schedule that I have, it's a little bit difficult to actually spend the love and attention that an animal needs. So if I can actually get the business to a point where it generates money and I don't have to work for someone else as well, then I'll probably look into getting a puppy. I enjoy cats, but I prefer dogs over cats. Sure. I might not immediately be able to give you an opinion, but you're welcome to show me, and then if I remember, because I'm insanely busy, I'll try and give you an opinion, point out things that, well, try and guide you as much as I'm capable. And I'm planning one entry for Comic-Con. I can actually show what it is. It's in the next room. Well, I did actually mention it on the video that I shared of my my tiny backlog. Awesome. Good night. See you next week. And if you're interested in the Ankylosphere stuff, the D&D livestream is on Wednesday evening, from about 7:30. Which I'm also considering finishing up. Usually Sundays is supposed to go to 10 o'clock, and obviously it's a little bit later now, but I've been enjoying myself. Cool. I shall have a look in a moment. I'm thinking I'm gonna finish up with this model and then call it a night. I might continue a little bit afterwards and put on a movie, but because the plan is to have these ready for when I'm doing the long live stream, which I shall communicate as fuck. Oh well. There's nothing I can do about it now. I snipped off a piece of the helmet. That was not the plan. I'll just sand it such and make it look like it broke off in battle. Or did I? No, I didn't. Yay! So this is like 0.5 millimeter by 0.5 millimeter, and I cut about 0.5 millimeter off. I'm not green stuffing that back up. I'm crazy, not stupid. There's a fine line, but there is a line. This is almost done. I might actually, well, partially, I mean, not really trying to see if I can win, but enter a squad of the Infinity stuff, more to get Richard's opinion than to actually win, anything? I think the other part for me is, when it comes to Comic-Con, I need to finish up designs and generate new stock and so on as well. So prepping for Comic-Con is not just painting up a few models and going that side. And obviously everyone's got their own jobs that they have to do as well, above and beyond just sitting and painting miniatures. So not saying you've got it easy, just think my preparation looks a little bit different than yours. So I shall have a proper look a little bit later at the stuff. So I'm not neglecting you, I just quickly want to get this guy, well, these two sorted, because then did I actually feel like I've accomplished something today? I hate the days that it feels like you've got you're not accomplishing anything. Fuck. I will, it's just a very finicky assembly. It's fairly similar to the one I finished first, but a little bit different. I shall also, as I usually do, post photos of what I did during the live stream on Instagram, because I have found that the specifically with the lights and the reflections and so on. Showing it on stream isn't always the best. Like watching paint dry. Oh, it's getting there. Nearly done. Just a head and 2 arms. This one fucking leg. Doesn't want to glue stick. Stay. So, I hear you, and I do agree that does help, but what I think is important to consider when we're talking about baking soda is it then adds actually quite a lot of body that you don't necessarily want with super glue, well, with miniature. So what I actually should get is the activator that helps it set, which does the same thing as the baking soda without adding material. So yeah, but it's pretty much done. It just needs to, careful, don't drop it. Look at this cute little guy. Well, technically he's a big guy, because if you think in terms of the scale that people are in this game, he's about double my size. I mean, I'm nearly 2 meters tall, so, but he's a cute little guy. So I shall base them and I shall post photos of them. I'm going to put them down very gently so that the glue has time to set. So I'll base them off camera, and then tomorrow post a photo on the WhatsApp. Not on the WhatsApp, on the Instagram. That one. Same company, different brand. The tiny guy that I started off with is also pretty much together. Just give him a few seconds for his arm to just initially set. Put him there. So this guy's probably as tall as I am, but I absolutely love him pulling out a mine from his back while holding a gun. Looks phenomenal. But yeah, I think a photo will definitely show them a bit clearer. So I shall be posting those as soon as I am, well, probably tomorrow morning. I usually post the photos on Monday because that's the one that makes the most sense. Let me quickly, if I can find myself, which is a lot easier said than done. That is not the one I was looking for. That's the one I'm looking for. Okay, let's try this a little bit differently. Hey, that works. So there's the straight link to Instagram. Should make life a little bit easier. So yeah, it's about an hour longer than I was originally planning to, which is fine. But yeah, I enjoyed myself. I think this was very necessary, very therapeutic actually. So thank you for joining me. Next week definitely I will be painting again, because by that time these guys will probably be based and primed, not necessarily do all the base coating, but definitely based and primed, getting them ready. So yeah, thanks for joining me. This has been fun. I think this is actually also the longest that I've done the history of the Atlasphere. The previous history of the Atlasphere that is available on YouTube isn't as detailed as what I told now, because a lot of stuff has been added since I released that original video, what's now, almost 2 years ago. So yeah, a lot has been added. So I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please go watch the D&D live streams. It's in that world. A lot of that lore does play a role in what's happening in our D&D campaigns. Speaking of, this Wednesday is actually, in fact, Isles of Adamore. So if you can, please try and join us there. Obviously, the chat is a little bit reduced than it is for the miniature painting, so it's not, unfortunately, not as interactive with an audience, but I think it's a fucking cool story. But I wrote it, so obviously I think that. Yeah, we start that 7:30 on Wednesday. I usually, I need to be a bit more aware of that, but I usually post updates on the Instagrams, like, oh, it's the stream this week, starting that time, all that kind of stuff, and Twitch should send you an email when we go live. So, yeah, this week, Isles of Adamore. Next week is Mania again, and I'll actually be painting some miniatures. I'll probably continue with Triss. I want to try and get specifically the 75mm model done, but yeah, thanks for joining me. I've had fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Saw some amazing models being painted. That's been sent to me via WhatsApp, obviously. Yeah, have a lovely evening, and tomorrow's public holiday, so enjoy the late sleep and, well, doing other random things than sitting at the office. Good night.